Yo, this hot, this the spot, there it is pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and life to stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast, a comedy podcast to help you find your inspiration. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let's do this. Thanks so much for joining us. In case you don't know, we have over 200 episodes up wherever you are listening to this podcast right now. On our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thereitis, we have various episodes. And every episode since number 201 uploaded on YouTube, except last week's episode with Wayne Fetterman. That's going up later this week with a correction. Brother of the show, Trey, puts together the video versions of episodes and has done enhanced versions of episodes 201 and on. And if I get anything wrong, he'll include a correction. So check those episodes out on youtube.com/thereitis. On today's episode, we have improviser Christine Chan. I came to know her through the Magnet community, and she was on the popular musical improv house team Kitty Hawk at Magnet. She was also an NBC page, and when I found out about that, I knew I had to talk to her about it. It's a fun chat, and she's also got a very soothing voice and vibe, so I hope you enjoy this. Here's my chat with Christine Chan.
Okay, yes, I can see that now. You know, I have dreams of like navigating the city. Did you have those kinds of dreams?
I have not had a dream in New York City yet. Whenever I have a dream of a place, it's like the dream version of my mom's house or my dad's house.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, probably because you're in New York. So I think once you're removed from it, or if you find yourself in a transition or moving, then you kind of have those after image.
I might. That must. I mean, I wonder when that's going to kick in.
Let me know.
I wouldn't mind it.
Do you ever have dreams that you're doing improv?
Like
doing improv scenes?
I don't. Maybe once, but not really. And I worked in radio, and people would always say, like, hey, have you had that dream yet that you've missed running a commercial? And I was like, no. I've never had that dream. I was having a recurring dream, even in recent years, of being in college in some class that I hadn't been to a bunch.
Yeah.
And it's a recurring dream where I keep thinking, I need to finally go to this class so I don't fail. I don't know why I keep having that dream. I'm long out of college.
That's a common dream, and one that I have as well, of like, apparently it's but it's individual. I feel like it's unique to everyone.
Right.
In the context of what they feel unprepared for.
Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to, in your dream, this has turned into like dream interpretation and astrology. No, it usually is not about college, literally. It's usually about something now. But it's weird that we have that common. Yeah. That's where we go to in times where we feel like we're not ready for something in our current lives.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, you went to Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
Are you from New Jersey?
I am.
Okay. And so you were in the area of New York City. Did you move to New York because you always wanted to go in the direction of entertainment? Like, what did you study at Rutgers that made you end up in New York and doing the stuff you were doing?
At Rutgers, it was unrelated, but I was a political science major.
Oh, okay.
And then I minored in anthropology and women's and gender studies. Mm-hmm. And I was pre-law, essentially. So I had found some elective courses in acting and voice and modern dance during my time at Rutgers. I kind of squeezed those in, and that actually really gave me the confidence to do well in and enjoy my major a lot more. It gave me a lot of confidence. And I
cool.
think, I think I missed that upon graduating. And so instead of pursuing law, I thought maybe there's something in these classes that I took at Rutgers that were theater based, and I could be creative, and maybe there's a writing component to it. So then I went to New York, and I worked in publishing for a little bit, and then eventually kind of found my way to UCB.
Mm-hmm. Did you do anything, because I know that you ended up on a musical megawatt team, and I see what looks like a guitar behind you, and you're performing improv, you get into that world, but did you do anything before college? Did you do anything with performance or comedy?
I like the lead up. Well, I went to post graduation. I worked in publishing. I thought maybe there's something that I could do with writing. I think that's where my head was at the time. And I thought I was funny. So then I funny enough to write material that maybe other people could relate to and that would be fulfilling. So I literally Googled, I had read about the Groundlings, and I really hadn't known too much about comedy or improv at all at that point. And maybe I read it in an autobiography. It was probably Bossy Pants or maybe Amy Poehler's autobiography. I literally Googled, what is the New York equivalent of Groundlings? And then UCB came up. So I began taking classes there, and then I left publishing to pursue journalism and broadcast journalism. So I started interning at Nickelodeon, taking more and more classes at UCB. And then I started interning there for a while at UCB, and tried to kind of find my way into what was once writing and publishing, now to a more focused, similar to writing, but entertainment, journalism, and comedy.
That's very cool. I mean, you packed a lot in during this span of starting college and then going into this other world from what you were studying in college, and it sounds like you're really following your curiosity.
That's a nice way of putting it.
What was the way you were putting it at the time?
I guess indecision. And maybe there were some pressures there, because we do have lawyers in the family, I guess, to pursue that path. I don't regret at all those majors in political science and anthropology and women's studies. I think that really informed. I definitely don't regret it, because it gave me an education in more informed comedy, smarter comedy, and relatable comedy to different demographics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important, and it gives meat and meaning to what you do and to the art.
Yeah.
So I still carry that with me, and I still keep my books, and we're trying to get rid of a lot of stuff in my parents' home, and I'm like, don't take my books.
Yeah.
My gender books, my sociology, and my notes. I'm like, don't throw those away.
Yeah, a lot of what you're talking about how it brings depth to the comedy you're doing reminds me of the fact that you were on an indie improv team called Affirmative Action at
Where
one
did
point.
this information come from?
I do a lot of research.
Where did that? Whoa!
It was an
I write
all-woman
that in my.
team, a woman of color team.
Yeah. Yes, I remember it was to uh, by one of the people who had founded the group, Millie, and all she said was it was either during maybe after a class show or after some performance at UCB, and she came up to me and said, um, asked me, do you want to be a part of a practice group? It's called Affirmative Action, and I was like, yep, just with the name alone, you don't need to tell me any more about it. Sounds good. So that was that was one of the first opportunities I had to work outside of class with all females and all women of color.
That's
We had
very
a good
cool.
time.
Obviously, it's an opportunity to share the different perspectives that each of you have in comedy. You did a lot at UCB. I mean, obviously, you were studying a lot at UCB and meeting a lot of people before you got into Magnet. Did you work there as well?
I was an intern there
Okay.
with their social media. It's a social media intern
Mm-hmm.
for UCB Comedy. And at that point, they were rolling out and promoting their online videos and sketches.
Okay, there is a Broad City Smart Girls with Amy Poehler episode. An episode of Smart Girls with Amy Poehler that the Broad City ladies were on, and you show up in it. Were you working on Smart Girls?
Jason, where is this? How did this come? What? Wait,
I am good at research. Were you a PA on that show? Like, how did you end up dancing at the end of this episode of Smart Girls with Amy Poehler?
Oh, I was an intern. That was when I was interning at UCB.
Okay.
And I think they had filmed it at the Beast at UCB East.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool that you got to be a part of that. Did you already know Abby and Alana?
I didn't. I did not. And that was when they were. This was when Broad City was really new, and they were, I think, they were in the middle of promoting the first season. They were all very warm. I remember Amy Poehler, I think she stopped. They were either about to film or they were in the middle of filming. And she stopped and introduced herself to me. And I remember exactly how she came up to me, and she was like, have we met before? And I mean, she didn't say it like that. She said it very confidently. And she was so warm. And I think I just remember how I felt. And she made you feel like you knew her for a long time. And so I'll never forget. And I think I carried that with me, that feeling in how to make people feel, or at least try to welcome them. I think that was a very special experience, along with Abby and Alana at the Beast.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was a fun experience.
Did you get to see a lot of cool, fun stuff while you were interning at UCB?
I did. I mean, I saw. Basically, what I remember is were you ever? Did you ever take classes there in their old? They had an old.
No, I never took any UCB classes.
You've never?
No.
Even now?
No, I've because when I got here, I already knew I moved here knowing I wanted to be at Magnet.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating. I think UCB is where I got the bones of what improv is.
Mm.
And then Magnet is where I got the kind of heart.
Mm.
Not that UCB doesn't have heart,
Right.
but it's where I understood it at that level. And it doesn't mean that you can't understand it at that level at UCB or the Pit
Right.
or the Groundlings, but it clicked for me there. And I think that's where the best improv is when there's heart
Mm-hmm.
and good intentions, even if it's a scene where there's supposed conflict. I think that can be learned at any school. Yeah, I don't know if that's how your experience was at the Magnet or what drew you to it, but it was so simple, and it wasn't as elusive as my time, I think, prior to Magnet,
Mm-hmm.
where I
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So no one's at fault, but it just
Right. I mean, the
landed at
different
different.
theaters will speak to different types of people, and so wherever it clicks for you, go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean with Magnet, because it did click for me in a different way. And but I've also had experiences reading books by people who have a different approach, and it clicked for me there too. You were saying about UCB seeing some cool things, and you were about to say something about the school, the UCB school. I didn't want that thread to get lost. What was it that you were about to say?
It wasn't that it's not that interesting. It's the first thing I was going to say was that they changed buildings. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting. It wasn't that interesting. They had changed. They had an old training center, which is why I asked you if you had ever taken classes there, which was very cozy, and the interns, you have basically just rooms for improv, and you come up the elevator. I think it goes to the fourth floor, and there's just a little lounge, and you just kind of sat on the couch, and you got to see a lot of the performers, from the shows that you would go see at night,
Mm-hmm.
and from the house teams come in and meet their teams. And that lounge, I don't know, water cooler environment was very interesting for me to observe. And so I would always kind of peek my head up and see the improvisers who I watched at night kind of
Mm.
in their natural environment. And that part was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about one cool moment. I think the Amy Poehler moment was it's one of the top moments there, but that daily, almost mundane part was something that I remember.
Yeah. I really love to go see tapings here, because I'll go and I won't even look at who's on the show.
Mhm.
So I'm not fascinated by the celebrity. I'm more fascinated by the production, and I'm watching the host get notes from the producer, and I'm like, interesting, okay, and then it's a different producer right before the next one. Yeah, like I'm thinking about all that stuff, and looking at the crew work, and and also just looking at the vibe of everyone, and how they are professional when they're in that element. I love to see it. I think it's really interesting. You got to see a lot of cool stuff because you worked at Nickelodeon and you were a page at NBC. What did you do at Nickelodeon?
Well, I was at UCB and I was interning there. I wanted to take on another internship simultaneously. And so I had a very good friend, and we actually met through a minorities in journalism workshop
Hmm.
a while back. And she said she uh, had a friend who was looking for an intern at specifically Nick News. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but Nick News with Linda Ellerby.
Hmm.
And that was a documentary kids program. And it was the only kind of news program of its kind and a children's documentary series that went on for about 20, maybe 22 years. And so I had grown up watching it. I think I remember it being on Sunday nights, maybe before, I think it was Sunday nights before school the next day. And it was this kind of educational break from the really, loud and crazy, I don't know what to call it, tone that Nickelodeon's other shows are usually like. And and I was an intern there and at UCB, and that was me kind of unknowingly at the time building up the experience that I needed, the minimum requirements to apply to the Page program.
How long were you a Page at NBC?
It's a year-long postgraduate program at NBC, and it's at 30 Rock. And they also have their program based in LA as well. So they have their LA LA Pages and New York City Pages. And I was a Page in New York. I was Kenneth the Page, if you've ever watched 30 Rock.
Yep.
It's not too far from that.
Hopefully you weren't quite exactly like Kenneth the Page. You just had the position.
It wasn't far off from that. And I think in terms of the qualities, that kind of earnest and open quality, open to whatever, and kind of willing to do whatever, whatever needs to be done.
Right. You gave over 300 tours. I was at every single one of them. No. Did you?
Oh, I love those tours.
Yeah, I got to go on a tour. We did a like an NBC tour before we moved here. We took a trip
Really?
here. Yeah, and they took us through the NBC News studio, and we got to go up on Studio 8H.
Yeah.
We didn't really get to go into the SNL studio.
Nope.
We just sort of from the top we got to see the space a little bit, and we saw where the audience sits.
Yes.
And something that is kind of, to me, a notorious thing, but I don't know how common this is from your perspective. I'd like to hear your perspective on this, but I remember when Conan was still hosting late night, which you became a Page when Fallon was there hosting late night before he started doing the Tonight Show. So Seth Meyers wasn't there yet, but
yes,
Conan was hosting an episode during the writer's strike when they just needed content. Conan had some hidden cameras during a Page tour of late night, and he gave the Page grief because the Page had said some things that weren't accurate. They weren't true.
Of course, Late Night with Conan O'Brien has been off the air for 2 months because of the writer's strike. The NBC Pages have been bringing tour groups through, and I thought maybe I'd hide out there behind the double doors, and then when a tour group comes in, maybe I'd just rush out, surprise them. Hi, everybody. Allie. Hi, it's Allie, everybody.
Hi.
Let's hear some of the facts that you know about my show, and I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
You made your parents proud after and moved out to LA to become
Parents
a writer.
proud? That would be untrue.
No? We were discovered by Lauren Michaels, the executive producer of SNL.
I was working at The Simpsons, actually, at the time. At
Didn't
the
you do
Groundlings Theater.
SNL before The Simpsons?
Yes, see, this is a terrible biography. It's all out of order. And then I was born. The end.
Well, you beat out Greg Kinnear and Adam Sandler for host here?
No. Adam Sandler, wow, he'll be thrilled to hear that. He desperately wanted the 12:30 show, but had to settle for making hundreds of billions of dollars.
And hopefully whoever takes over the Late Show will be doing it.
Late Show, it's called Late Night. All right, now listen, I've listened to this since the beginning. This is absolute crap what this guy's telling you. First of all, they're not 189 seats. It's 191.
191.
It's not late show with Conan O'Brien. It's late night with Conan O'Brien. No, you said late show. Didn't you say late show?
And on the tour that I had, when we got to SNL, the guy was like, yeah, and down there is just the open space. It's always open. Sometimes they put these extra chairs there if they just need extra seating. And I'm like, I watch that show every week, and there's always an audience sitting there during the monologue. Like they're always sitting in that spot. That is not just a spot they occasionally use for the audience when they need extra seating. They always put people in those chairs. So to me, it's like, is there all this bad information that we just give? Like, is this a thing? Like, what is your perspective on this?
We're very tired. So just to give you the perspective. So basically the page program's 1 year. You know, there's one New York Times article that compares its competitive rate or its acceptance rate to, you know, an Ivy League school or Harvard. They take 60 pages at any one time. So you have a cohort of 60. And so for that year, you are touring, you're giving tours of 30 Rock. And that was the grit work. And you would kind of do that. And it's changed a lot. I don't know how it is now, but that was kind of your onboarding for at least the first month to 3 months. Some people toured their whole year. You can do up to, I don't know, maybe up to a few. It's several tours. Maybe not 7, but it's a lot. Each, I think, as you remember, they're at least an hour long. And sometimes you would just be back to back. You just come off of a tour and grab the next group. There's a pretty rigorous vetting and interview process coming into the program. And then once you're in, you still have to interview to get the assignments that you want or the rotations. And you would work that show or that kind of focus for 3 months at a time until you interview for another assignment. And you kind of get your taste in each department and see, you know, where you want to end up at the end of that year. But the tours are kind of the stuff you do in between when you're either not, you don't have an assignment, or when you're new and you're still kind of getting used to the transition of the program. You take exams when you're in the program, and you're given a book, and it's about, I might be exaggerating, it could be a few hundred, maybe it's like 100 pages, 200 pages long of all of NBC's history, and you're tested. You have a pretty lengthy written test, and a lot of that information has to be stored in the event someone asks you on a tour. So you try to prepare yourself for as many questions, you know, all possible questions one could ask. And so it's really important that you're well versed and you have an executive presence and you're confident while you're giving your tours. But again, we would start tours at like 7 a.m. and, you know, you could end at like, I don't know, it could be the whole day, like 7 to 7, you'd be doing these tours. And then sometimes people would just ask you, I remember because we were in the SNL studio and I was like, hey, this is where SNL, and we actually, I know what you're talking about. Usually they bring you behind the glass. It's pretty rare that they open the glass door and you get to kind of filter in the audience seats. But we were in there and I was like, this is where they film SNL. There's a pull-out stage where the host comes out and delivers their monologue, and it's 6 feet. It's like a trundle bed. I mean, we have these, I couldn't tell you, I couldn't do the speech now, but you have to, there's a whole, besides the written test, there's also an oral test where you have to give a tour and pass that.
And that's one of the things that, and this is where I can empathize with Pages. When you go on a tour at NBC, if they're filming in a certain studio, then the tour can't go by there. So
Yeah.
the page has to say like, well, here are the places we can go, and so this is where I'm going to take this tour. So you do have to just have a lot of information. It's not like you can say, I'm going to go to these 3 places or 3 studios
Oh,
all day, and so I can just work on knowing the information about those 3 studios. It's going to change from hour to hour and from tour to tour.
exactly. I remember there would be a board, and it would be like, okay, from this time to this time slot, 3K is open, 3B, 8H, and then from this time to this time, there's only one studio, and we'd always feel really bad for that
Yeah.
tour group that would only get the one studio, and it's very cold. I don't know if you remember, but it was
Yeah.
it's very cold because we have an air system
Hmm.
that I don't remember, but the purpose is apparently to keep the cameras very cold,
Yeah.
and it's a moisture free air system so that condensation doesn't build up
Ooh.
on the camera lenses. I don't know. I thought
Very
maybe you
interesting.
would think that's interesting as a
Yeah, I
producer.
think that's interesting. What is the best time to go, would you say? Is there a particular time that you would suggest people take a tour of 30 Rock?
I don't know I don't even know if they're still touring now.
Well,
I
yeah, that's true. I don't know what they're doing now in 30 Rock. We went a few weeks ago to see Amber Ruffin record her show.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if they were doing tours, but it seemed pretty open downstairs. I love 30 Rock. I've been there so many times. I love the smell.
The smell.
Yeah,
The smell.
that's that 30 Rock or that NBC store smell.
Oh,
There's some like special scent that they pump through there,
they must. They
and
must. Can you
and
describe the smell?
oh gosh, I mean, I'm sure there's eucalyptus in it, but I have not smelled anything like it anywhere else.
Can you describe what you feel like when you smell this odor?
I feel it does like it smells really clean. Um and
Pine
it's
or
not
lemon?
piney. It's not
Citrus?
piney. I would more go in like a seafoam direction almost. It's a good smell. People should go to 30 Rock, walk into the NBC store, and just take a deep breath. They'll love you for this. um, so well, that's really cool, and I won't give Pages too hard of a time for that. But did you ever have an experience? And I imagine they try to avoid this, but did you ever have an experience where you're giving a tour and a famous person walked by?
Ooh, not on tours. Not too much on tours, but I think it was more my experience when I was working the Tonight Show and when I had that assignment there. I had to
Cool.
escort a lot. Oh, I had to get their dressing rooms ready. I had to kind of help facilitate their transportation, make sure that they got here,
Oh, cool.
and bring them. Some people just took the subway. Some of the
Yeah,
guests.
that's how I met Lester Holt. He's just on the subway.
Yeah.
And I heard at that tour, the page mentioned that Lester Holt takes the subway from time to time, and he's like, he still does. And so I was like, oh, interesting. And then years
Yeah.
later, I met him on the subway.
Did you say hi?
I did.
Wow.
I said hey and
How
thank
bold.
you because he has a very calming presence
Yeah.
which I think is really good for news. And it's not just his presence; it's his integrity. And so I thanked him for his integrity in news. And he was
Oh,
very gracious and had a very warm kindness about him.
he is very kind, very warm. I think he's a fan of tennis, is what I remember. I remember I used to would put his newspaper, I would set it up in his dressing room when I
Oh,
would
cool.
dressing rooms when I was on the Tonight, or not the Tonight Show, I'm sorry, the Today Show. And those were crazy hours. You had to kind of be in
Yeah, real early or real
3,
late.
4 in the morning.
Hmm. That's
Whenever,
interesting.
but Lester Holt is, oh yeah, what a guy.
Yeah. If
He
you
takes the
like
subway.
watching nightly news, I suggest watching Lester Holt. He's a good man of good integrity, and we need that in the news. What who would you say when you were working Tonight Show, who was the kindest?
Mm. 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 There's a couple. Um, Julianne Moore
Mm.
was really, I believe she brought her son, and I felt like she made you feel like you would, like she would invite you to her house for dinner, which she never did, but it felt, she gives you a hug, and
Oh.
she brought her son, and um, maybe other members of her family, and um, again, it's the same with what I guess I was trying to describe with the encounter with Amy Poehler when I was at UCB, which was just that feeling that you you just met them, but they made you feel like you knew them,
Mm.
or that they knew you, and it's very relaxed. Julianne Moore was surprising because I I I don't think I really watched. I think I do now. I definitely do now. I watch more of her work now, but before I wasn't. That I'll never forget.
Mm.
Eddie Redmayne, he was at the time promoting The Theory of Everything. He was playing
Mm.
Stephen Hawking,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember looking at the list of people I had to pick up that day from their car and bring them to their dressing room, and I'm like, who is Eddie Redmayne? And it sounded like, I was like, is he I had no idea. I was like, is he a country singer? I didn't. I was just, is this a musical? I thought it was a musical guest. And I remember going downstairs, and he came. Usually I mean, it varies with guests and talent. And sometimes they come with a very large posse, and there's a publicist, and you really can't get too close to them. You kind of just bring this large group of people up without really ever directly interacting with them. But I really had, again, no expectations, and I think those were the most memorable times for me, was when I really didn't expect anything, and I go downstairs, the car door opens, and I see this young, strapping British man, and it's just him by himself, and he's like, "It's lovely to meet you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I want to do it in his accent, but I don't think I'll do it justice. And I heard in one of your episodes with Jackie Stewart that you're also not comfortable with
I'm
accents.
not great at them, but I surprise myself sometimes. If I have to do it in a scene, then I'll like I did a British accent once in a scene and was sort of like, how am I doing this and it's not so noticeable that it can't because I was like, this can't possibly be a good accent, but no one was laughing at that, you know? It was just like people accepted it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how am I getting away with this? It was bizarre. So maybe I need to be a little bit more confident about about it. But as dialect coach Jordan Yanko said when he was on, he said it's just what you're exposed to. And so if you hear it
Huh.
enough, then you kind of, it gets
Huh.
easier to accomplish.
Okay, well, let me try it then. And I didn't mean to diverge onto your
No, no, no.
accent, you know, your accent fears, because it's really, I'm projecting, it's my accent fear. So he was like, it's lovely to meet you. Oh, that was, I can't, no.
But I get the vibe that you're going for, and I can accept it. And I get it. I get it.
Ah,
Um,
lovely. It's lovely to meet you. It's still
yeah.
not good.
No, but
Not
I get
good.
what kind of British accent you're going for, and I do see why that would make you melt when someone says
Oh,
it to you. Yeah.
yeah, it was melt worthy. Yeah, that was memorable. Will Smith
Yeah, I can,
was exactly.
how you want them to be. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that.
And Jada.
Yeah.
They were together as guests, as
That's
co-guests.
that's cool. And I
Um,
interacted with Fallon, and I found him to be warm.
oh man, when did you interact with? Was it a
When I
show?
went to a taping, I went to a
Yeah.
taping in 2017, and it was when he could still go in the audience and give high fives,
Mm-hmm.
and he came by, and I was at a corner, and so I wrote him a thank you note, and so I was like, hey, here, and he was sweet.
Did he take it?
Yeah. But I messed up. It's a long story. But like I didn't show him that I wrote a thank you note. I was just holding up a card that said thank you,
Uh-huh.
and he was like, "Ah," and then like high five me or whatever. And I was like, "Here, take it," and he did. But I don't know if he ever read it
I
because I
he
never
did.
showed it to him.
He did. If he took it, he did.
Well,
Uh,
I'd like to think that he did, and it made his day. That's the story I'll go with.
Oh,
So you got to be around a lot of people. It's got to be nice when you meet somebody like Will Smith and they're as nice as you want them to be. That's a cool experience.
was Jimmy Fallon. I would always get starstruck. That was the only. And you, as a page, you're not supposed to. But you
Right.
really have to tamp down that inclination to gawk.
Yeah. Yeah.
You kind of have to keep your head down and do your work. But I mean, we're all human, and so you can't help but you get really bombarded. It's a lot. Eventually, you kind of become desensitized to it, for better or for worse. But Jimmy Fallon was not someone I always got very flushed with Jimmy Fallon, and then I would also help out a little bit with the Roots because your desk at the Tonight Show is right in front of their dressing rooms.
Mhm.
That was very cool, and you always had to know. I think there were about 10 members. All of the members are coming in and out at different times. It was really cool to see. Again, I really liked observing that. When they're not taping, when they're preparing, for that you had to make sure that you had their snacks ready. And if you were good, you knew. And if the page before you, who had the assignment before you and was training you, would tell you who wanted the Buffalo Blue Chips, who wanted the Doritos, the Cheetos, you knew like who wanted what, and you had it on the ready. Those were the kinds of little details that one would.
It's neat. Yeah, I mean that's those. I mean whole building is an institution. It's a well-oiled machine, and getting to see how it operates, it
Mhm.
had to have helped when you moved on to other things, like when you worked at the Cooking Channel. How long were you there at Cooking Channel?
I was I was I was in casting, and that was just the length of that season, and I think
Hmm.
it had ended. The series had ended not too long after that, so
Okay.
just there for that season,
What
and
show was it?
it was a show called My Grandmother's Ravioli
Oh, interesting.
with Mo Rocca, who is also
Oh, a
a
comedy guy. He
comedian,
was
and
early
yeah,
days of Daily Show, Mo Rocca.
yeah.
Who's parlayed that into doing kind of more real news stuff.
Yeah, he
um,
does a morning show on the weekends, which I enjoy, and my mom enjoys as well.
mhm,
It's like
mhm.
this educational, um, yeah. And so that the show that he hosted and created, it was about, um, finding exactly how the title is, My Grandmother's Ravioli. So finding um, people who are older, and of up an older generation kind of delve into their recipe secrets and their uh, family traditions, and share and cook with Morocca in their home pretty much, and my job was to kind of find these people who are willing to, share that and let us into their home and cook and have a meal with them. So Mo Rock is a very smart. He was I wouldn't say intimidatingly smart, but I don't know if I could keep up with us with he has a whole anthology of references, and there's and history and knowledge. So but he was really amazing to work for, and it was a really small group, so we got to be in meetings and just being, just getting to know what's, what his thought processes are.
Oh, cool.
It's pretty
Yeah,
unique.
I'm not surprised to hear he's a sharp guy.
Yeah.
Just because I used to watch him on Daily Show alone, just that era of Mo Rocca's career makes it very clear how intelligent he is. So when
Yeah.
were you at Magnet performing, or had you found Magnet by this point?
Yeah.
One of the things that you feel that you found at Magnet was the heart of like the heart of doing improv scenes, which I think is an accurate way to put it. This is the same sort of vibe that I get from Magnet. You were on one of the very popular musical megawatt teams at Kitty Hawk. Is that the track that you wanted to focus on the most when you got to Magnet, being on the musical megawatt side of improv, or the musical side of improv?
Yes, and I think that's a big reason. That was the only place that I could find musical improv, and I just remember when I was taking classes before I found Magnet and I was at UCB, the only warm up that I really enjoyed was Hot Spot.
Oh,
So
that's funny.
that was the only thing that I understood and looked forward to. And then we had to perform, and then all was lost after that. So I'm like, where? Again, I think Google was very pivotal in leading me from place to place in improv. But I was like, where can I find musical improv? And that was the Magnet, and that was intentional. And yeah, it's a whole different tone and community feel. I think when you're doing musical improv, there's an inherent kind of openness to it. You really do have to be quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then there's a joy to it as well.
Yeah.
It's
In every
inherent.
way, because you're also one of the things that's so great about musical megawatt, it's not just that it's it could be easy for people to see musical improv as, well, it's improv, but everyone's singing. It's more than that, because for one, Frank Spitznagel, the musical director at Magnet, is fantastic. And so the band is always really fun to listen to, but the teams are also dancing. They're doing choreographed stuff on stage. So the stage picture is always really great and interesting. And then there's like funny dance stuff that people are doing while they're also singing funny things and setting up funny improv scenes with songs. It's one heck of a feat, and it does take vulnerability, for one, because a lot of people are nervous to sing, but people are also nervous to do improv. But in order to do it all, you just have to jump. You have to take really big leaps. And I think that really comes across, especially at magnet musical improv shows. There is such a big, joyful leap to just have fun and let go.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, and I think Michael Lutton would say this often, which was you don't have to, by any means, be a good singer. But when you are singing, and we all notice this in class, and if you've taken a musical class, that absolutely applies. And when you're singing out and um, being as genuine as you can with it, and you're really trying, you're really trying, and it shows it. Um, um, you can pull it off, and the same with hip hop improv too. That
Yep.
confidence, when that confidence is there, if you've ever done the gibberish, I don't know what the actual name of the exercise is, but it's the rap exercise where you don't use words, and you're just using nonverbal sounds over a beat, and that it's that same application or same concept of if you have confidence, if you fake it till you make it, as one would say, or some would say, it, you can, yeah, you can pull it off.
Absolutely, yeah. It's getting the rhythm with that exercise, that gibberish exercise. You're you kind of know just whether someone is telling a joke, especially a really short joke, or um, rapping something. You kind of get the idea of when it's about to be the end, just because of the rhythm of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
a really cool thing.
yeah. When it's, especially with rap, because that's, you have, I think, between the 8 bars, 16 bars, it definitely ends, or you definitely have to pass it off to someone, or
You're
someone
right.
takes it at a certain point, just because that is um, that is how that's the structure of many rap songs.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, well, we have now reached the end of the episode. We could talk so much more, but I have to let you go. So it's time to create something together. And I think
Mhm.
one thing that might be cool to do is to maybe you can kind of describe the structure of musical improv, because I've never taken a musical improv class before.
What?
Yeah, I haven't done that yet, and that was something right before the pandemic. I was like, "Hey, maybe I'll do that next," and then, of course, everything shut down. But I do think when watching a show, you just don't know how people are doing it, but you get that there is some sort of structure there. So maybe you can explain what that structure is.
Oh boy. But there's an opening, and you could choose from that opening. It says you're singing about, based off of a suggestion. So it's the same as any improv show where an audience gives the group a suggestion. The music starts. Usually Frank is, from what I remember, I think he would also have a kind of feel of, or mood set, and that would inspire him. And he was incredible. He is incredible at it.
Yeah, he's so good.
With a genre, just coming up with a genre that would inspire the group to kind of, okay, this is we're hearing like this kind of disco tech, or we're hearing a rock opera, or we're hearing a straight up, Broadway um, dance number kind of genre. And then we do that opening, and then there's a couple from that opening. There's about 3 scenes that follow a structure, and you can choose. It's either a hero's journey, or where you're following kind of one character's triumph or struggle.
Mm-hmm.
throughout 3 or 4 scenes, or you can have a fairy tale structure where you'll see a clear kind of dichotomy of a good and evil character, and hopefully how the good prevails or not. And then I think the third structure is, or third path one can take, is a kind of group game where everyone is on stage at the same time, and you kind of, there isn't one protagonist. It's the group, kind of, you remain on the stage, and maybe you peel off into different characters and come back as a new one, but there isn't one particular focus. So it's how you kind of, that group dynamic remains throughout the 3 scenes, and then you find some way to wrap it up after those 3 scenes, and that becomes your close. And that's essentially, there's a lot of nuances to it,
Right.
and one can go into genre, and that can inspire the whole thing. You could sing the entire time,
Yeah.
which doesn't usually happen. It's usually scene into song, so talking, that builds up so much that you can't help but you have to break out into song. Or,
Yeah.
or there's a,
And that's
know.
when, Frank starts kind of keying you in on when that's starting. But when he starts to play during a scene, it's like, all right, well, I guess the song's coming.
I guess we have to. You have to.
Is there a particular structure to singing? Like, obviously,
Yeah. Yes.
there is to singing, but I just mean in an improv scene, is there a what is that?
ABBA. It gets, now that I'm trying to break it down. I didn't realize it's more complicated than I thought. There's backline tags, frontline tags. What those mean is, if you've ever listened to jazz, that's a lot of, somewhere over the rainbow is what, we were taught in classes. That's the common frontline tag, where you keep repeating somewhere over the rainbow, and then the verse happens, and then you repeat it again, and the verse, it's how it starts off each verse. And then choruses.
When you said ABBA, it's ABBA. Is that like the rhyming structure?
It's the structure of the chorus itself. So you'll have your verses, and I'm gonna get some grief over not remembering how to do this. And I have dreams about this too, but it's ABBA is the chorus structure. There's also ABAB. Basically, A is equivalent to a line. B is equivalent to a different line in that chorus. A means that you repeat that line. It's like if A equals, Jason and I went on a walk. B, I'd have to sing this out. And then B would be like, and we had a great time. And we had a great time. Then A would be repeating, or an ABAB, it would be like, Jason and I went on a walk. And then ABAB, again, you repeat the B, and we had a great time. So it's that structure. And that's a more difficult, I think. You don't see that used as often.
People should go to a musical improv show and figure out which one it is. Is the structure ABBA or ABAB?
I will say this, though. You know it, and you're not, you've sung these kind of structures before, and you probably don't even know it.
Awesome. Well, there it is. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, Christine.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Those NBC pages, let's give them a break. They have a lot going on. It's a tough job. Really interesting stuff she shared there. Christine mentioned off air that she listened to the Jackie Stewart episode, number 167, which has a meditation in it. And Christine told me that meditation really helped her with improv. So I definitely suggest you give that episode a listen. There's also a bonus episode of just the meditation that Jackie did in the feed. So go check that out wherever you are listening to this episode. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at There It Is Pod. And don't forget our YouTube at There It Is. And also check out our newsletter You can go to thereitispod.com for more info on that. Until next time, be good to each other.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.